I've been starting to get into bossing in my Hardcore Iron Man series, and decided that, as I did so, I'd start building some PVM guides aimed primarily at people like me. That is, people who are looking to boss in suboptimal gear with suboptimal confidence, and sometimes suboptimal skill. This is where my Queen Black Dragon guide is coming from. It's aimed as an entry-level guide for people looking to get their first kills, or iron out their process if they're struggling at QBD. In this guide, I'm going to cover minimum and recommended requirements, gear setups, inventory, ability bars, and boss mechanics, using clips for examples, before showing a full kill including getting to the boss, as an example. I'll also put timestamps into the description for the video so you can skip to specific parts you're interested in. I'm putting my recommended unlocks and stats on screen right now. I would recommend 70 plus in ranged or magic depending on the style you want to use, 70 plus in defense, 70 plus in prayer with the pious prayers unlocked, which you unlock through a Night's Waves mini quest, 60 summoning, completion of the Song from the Depths quest, access to super anti-fires, which requires 85 herblore and 25 thieving, although this can be boosted, and access to War's Retreat and the War's Retreat teleport spell. Out of these, only 60 summoning is actually a requirement. Everything else is purely recommended. 70 plus in your chosen attack style and defense will help you get cleaner kills. 70 plus prayer will likewise give you easier and cleaner kills. Completing Song from the Depths reduces the damage you take from QBD throughout the fight. Super anti-fires likewise reduce all of the fire damage you take throughout the fight. You can use regular anti-fire potions, but you'll take significantly more damage from many of the mechanics, which I'll go into later. Access to War's Retreat is purely a convenience, but will give you much faster kills overall, as you'll get to and from the boss a lot quicker. My first assumption here is that you don't have high-end gear. Maybe you're an Iron Man like myself, or maybe you just don't have any money. If you're interested in optimal gear setups, I'll leave a link in the description to the wiki, which has you covered. But that's not the aim of this guide. My second assumption is you're not the most confident PVMer, and you find the mechanics of combat a little intimidating. I'm showing the gear and stats I used on screen right now. I would recommend using ranged or mage for QBD. You can use melee, but several of the mechanics discussed later are easy to deal with if you're not in melee distance. As a weapon, I'm using the Magic Staff iteration of the Sun Spear, a tier 78 weapon. QBD has quite high defense, so for smooth kills, I'd recommend this weapon or better. For Mainscape players, the Royal Crossbow is a great, cheap ranged weapon, and for Ironmen who don't have the Sun Spear, you could use Vanquish as a tier 75 weapon, although this will result in longer kill times. For the rest of the gear, aim to use the best power armor you have. God Wars 1 gear is great. Skeletal armor or spined armor is an easily obtainable alternative for Ironmen. Avoid tank armor if possible, even if it's a higher tier, as the damage increase you get from the power armor is typically more useful than the damage reduction you get from using tank armor. For jewelry, take the best amulet you have access to in the style you're using. I'm using the Dragon Rider amulet from One of a Kind, as it's free. I'm also using a Ring of Life as I'm a hardcore Iron Man, but if you aren't, I'd recommend your best damaging ring. The Asylum Surgeon ring is free and very powerful. Similarly, I'm using a Portent of Life in my pocket slot. If you're less worried about dying than I am, then a Goblet would be a low cost alternative. The general idea with the gear here is simply to maximize the offensive bonus for your chosen style. If you have Invention unlocked, Precise and Equilibrium are good perks that are easy to get. Dragon Slayer is obviously a good perk for killing QBD specifically. In the following clips, I'm also using a Slayer helm, as I'm killing QBD as part of a Slayer task. It's definitely not essential, but I recommend trying to do this, as the 15% bonus damage and accuracy is significant. You can skip tasks with Slayer points, use Slayer tickets, or clear tasks with Shuriel to force the QBD task. Duradul, Guradul, Movrun, and Laniaka can all assign Black Dragon tasks. For the inventory, I keep it very simple. You need a super anti-fire potion, or regular anti-fire potion if you can't make the superior version and like dying, the best offensive potion you have, a prayer potion for emergencies, your best combat familiar. I'm using a Talon Beast. I would avoid Beast of Burden for this method, as they shouldn't be necessary. 60 summoning is a requirement for QBD, so there's no excuse not to bring at least some DPS familiar, even if it's not very good. You'll also need runes if you're using magic. I'm using Air Surge. The rest of the inventory can just be food. I'm using Catfish in the following clips, as it's easy to obtain. Also, we're going to be using the War's Retreat to quickly restock our inventory and refill our adrenaline after every kill, so there's no need to bring more than the resources required to get a single kill. You can also use presets to minimize banking time. If you don't have access to the War's Retreat teleports, you can unlock it by speaking to War after getting 10 total boss kills across any boss, which you should definitely do, as it's a very, very, very useful teleport. Obviously, there's a whole slew of items you could bring that would make the kills quicker or smoother instead of all this food. You could bring Dread Nibs, vulnerability bombs, weapon switches, ring switches, adrenaline potions, the list goes on. But this is a beginner's guide, so I'm assuming you probably don't have access to some of these higher end options. If you do, and feel confident using them, then use them and enjoy the lower kill times they bring. QBD is immune to poison though, so don't bother bringing weapon poisons or Cinderbanes. I'm using the magic Sun Spear in the following clips, so use the ability bar shown below. It's taken straight from the wiki, and I'll leave a link in the description. I've also included the recommended setup for magic dual wield, range two-handed, and range dual wield in this screenshot. Some of these abilities like Sunshine or Death Swiftness have requirements, so it's worth checking the wiki to see what your optimal setup would be. I've tried doing this on both manual and revolution and didn't notice a significant DPS difference from my testing, so feel free to use either. Don't use legacy mode. Seriously, it's almost 2021. I also include the following abilities on a secondary ability bar: Freedom, Anticipation, and Devotion. These are used purely for adrenaline stalling, which I cover later. Lastly, I have a one-click teleport and my prayers. I'm using the tier 70 Augury prayer unlocked by the Knight's Wave mini quest, along with the Protect from Ranged, as I do not have the prayer level for high-end curses yet. Use the higher tier curses if you have them. Now let's talk mechanics. QBD has 4 phases, with each lasting for 25,000 hit points. In phase 1, she has 3 core mechanics. Firstly, a basic range and melee attack. I recommend standing exactly here in phase 1. Standing here, you add a range of QBD's melee distance, so she will only attack with ranged, letting you pray ranged the whole time. With Protect from Range, she will hit up to 1,500, which sounds scary, but it's actually relatively slow and inaccurate. Secondly, a standard Dragonfire attack. This will hit 400s with the super anti-fire potion, but twice this with just a regular anti-fire potion. Thirdly, her fire wave mechanic. This is the only mechanic that requires any real interaction with in phase 1. A chat box message with the text, "The Queen Black Dragon takes a huge breath," appears, and she rears up. She creates a firewall moving from her head to the edge of the arena. If you have super anti-fires, this wall does 750 damage per game tick. There are 4 primary ways to interact with this attack. 1. Stand in a single tiled gap that appears in each wave. Doing this results in no damage being taken, but moving around can reduce your DPS, so it's not always recommended. 2. You can simply walk through the fire wave. This results in getting hit for a single game tick, which is 750 damage. 3. If you time your movement through the wall correctly, you will actually take no damage, which is what I show here. I find it easier to step away and then back into the flame wall personally, but your experience may be different. The timing requires some practice, but the penalty for failure is typically low, as you'll just take 750 damage. 4. You can do absolutely nothing. If you simply stand still and let the wall hit you, you will take damage for 2 ticks, which is 1,500 damage. The lower your DPS, the more important it is to avoid damage from the flame wall, as otherwise you could run out of food. But in general, the flame wall mechanic can be largely tanked, and I would not suggest wasting too much DPS moving to avoid it. When she hits 0 hit points, the Dragonkin artifact you're next to starts to light up, and you have to click on it to start the next phase. Until you do this, you cannot damage QBD any further. Additionally, until you click the artifact, you will summon aggressive worms. If you're ranging or maging as recommended, you can instantly click the artifact, and QBD should not create a single worm in this phase. If she does though, don't worry, just ignore them for the rest of the fight. In phase 2, QBD maintains all existing mechanics with 2 changes. Firstly, the firewall mechanic now creates 2 flame walls a short distance apart, as shown here. They can be dodged in the same manner as the first phase, although moving to the gap in the firewalls can become impractical given the distance between them, so I'd recommend just stepping through the walls at this point. If you can time it to take no damage, that's great, but taking 750 damage is also fine as you can eat through it. Secondly, QBD begins to summon tortured souls in phase 2. A chat box message appears with the text, "The Queen Black Dragon summons one of her captured souls," and a purple ghost appears 1 tile to your west. After a short delay, it fires a slow moving cloud at you that can hit up to 1,500 typeless damage. If you time it correctly, as shown in this clip, the chaotic cloud will follow you through the ghost, and the tortured soul takes the damage instead. If you time it incorrectly, you will take the damage. You do not need to kill the tortured souls, but I would recommend it, as otherwise they can get out of hand, and can actually heal QBD. Also, for role-playing reasons, put them out of their misery. When QBD hits 0 hit points, the far west artifact will then light up. You have to run and click on it as before. If you spend too long on the platform, as I do in this clip here, you will take 1,500 points of typeless damage, so try not to linger. As before, if you take too long, the QBD will start to spawn worms that will attack you for the rest of the fight. If you're using ranged or mage, it's fairly easy to limit this to a single worm. Regardless, I'd recommend ignoring any spawned worms for the rest of the fight. In phase 3, QBD adds 1 new ability and modifies 2 existing ones. When she summons a firewall, she now summons 3 waves instead of 2. Additionally, when she summons her tortured souls, she now summons 2, one to the west and 1 to the east. Similarly to before, if you time it correctly, you can move through the souls, and both their attacks will get blocked by a single soul. Lastly, QBD adds a new ability where she temporarily changes her affinity to take more damage from magic and less from physical attacks, or vice versa. This ability is random and, other than bringing a hybrid setup, cannot be interacted with, so it can be mostly ignored. At the end of Phase 3, when QBD hits 0 life points again, the Far East artifact will light up. As before, simply click on it and then move off the platform as quickly as possible. In Phase 4, QBD adds another ability and modifies her Tortured Soul ability. When she summons her Tortured Souls, she now summons 4 of them in a box around you as shown here. As before, if you time your movement correctly, you can move so that the attacks are blocked. Also, the souls gain the Time Stop ability, which allows them to stop time. One of the Tortured Souls teleports to the corner as shown here and starts rambling about time being short. You need to kill the Tortured Soul within 10 seconds or you will be frozen in time and unable to attack, move, or heal. This is bad news. The QBD will continue attacking you and you will take all the received damage at the end of a time stop, so there's a very high chance you die. Her new ability is Extreme Dragon Breath. You see a chat box message that says, the Queen Black Dragon gathers her strength to breathe extremely hot flames. And then she will deal damage every tick for 3 ticks. You take more damage in the center. I put the exact damage received on the screen currently as it's a little complex. If you're using ranged or mage, it's easier to stay on the edge here and take reduced damage compared to using melee. If you don't have super anti-fires, the damage here can become unmanageable, which is why I would not recommend using regular anti-fires. Phase 4 is really the danger phase for QBD. Both the Extreme Dragon Breath and the Tortured Souls can hit very hard, very quickly if you're not careful. If QBD stacks the 2 abilities together, you run the risk of being KO'd. You can see what's happening in the current clip, where I almost die. In a separate clip I didn't record, I also have my Ring of Life procced in a similar situation. For this reason, if you are a hardcore Iron Man, I would not recommend doing QBD without a Ring of Life, even if you feel confident. Phase 4 ends the same way as the previous phases. The central southern artifact lights up when QBD hits 0 life points, and you just click on it to confirm the kill. This covers all the boss mechanics, so now I'll run a full kill with some unscripted commentary, so let's see how that goes. You can see I'm starting in War's Retreat. I've attuned the boss portal to go to QBD. It costs 100k, it is massively worth it, you'll get back 100k in a single kill. You do need at least 1 kill in QBD to do that. If you don't have that, then I would recommend you just run by the ports from Lowstone, get that kill, and then instantly attune the boss portal. It will massively decrease your total kill times. It also lets you use adrenaline stalling like I'm doing here. You can see I've come in with 100 adrenaline, I'm using defensive abilities to keep that up. That means I'm going to start the fight with Sunshine, which is a really powerful ultimate ability, and Phase 1 is when you want to use it. Phase 2 and, Phase 3 and 4, you can be a little bit mobile. Phase 1 and Phase 2, you can typically just stand here for most of it, which means you can stay in the Sunshine beam. That means that, firstly, yeah, it's just a great ability to use, and secondly, there's no better time to use it in the fight than right now. I like to stand right here because it's outside of melee range, so you just have to worry about ranged attacks and praying it's ranged. It also means you're right next to the artifact for when the phase ends, like here. And secondly, in Phase 2, you can stay here for a bit longer to enjoy that Sunshine beam, and you see when she summons the Tortured Soul, it appears 1 step to the west, which is where it wants to be. If you're on the other side of the artifact, then it might spawn somewhere else, right? There wouldn't be space for it to spawn 1 step to the west, and it could bug out a little bit, and that could be a problem. Now the phases are going to end in a second. I'm going to run, and I'm going to hit the Dragon Queen artifact. I think I spent a little bit too long on the platform during this clip, I can't quite remember. So I think I take some damage on it. Yep, I take some damage, so yeah, try and spend less time. Also, it looks like 2 grot worms got spawned, but that's not a problem. She does become crystal resistant in this phase. She gains the consistency of crystal, so it becomes magic resistant. It does draw the phase out a little bit, it's going to take a bit longer, but there's nothing you can do about that, right? Now she's going to summon her souls, she summons 2 of them. Again, like in Phase 1, you just sidestep. Both the chaotic clouds get caught with the souls. I then clean them up. You don't technically have to, but if you don't kill them, then they can cause problems later on. I just think it gets too risky. I get a warning about my charge pack. That's fine, I'll have to fix that after this fight. Now, this phase is almost over. It's definitely taken longer than usual. It's taken like almost the whole length of the previous 2 phases combined. Because firstly, I'm not using Sunshine, and secondly, that crystal form of I'm using magic is pretty brutal. Now, that phase ended, I clicked the artifact, Phase 4 at the beginning. See how I moved in from the edge there? I don't think I covered this in the mechanics, but I stepped in away from the edge because if you don't do that and she summons her Tortured Souls in that, she summons 4 of them in Phase 4 in a little box around you. If you're at the edge, some of them can't summon where they're supposed to, they summon elsewhere and it makes it harder to dodge the attacks. But she didn't summon them, it's fine, the phase is over, I touched the last crystal, and now there's nothing more than to see what I get. I don't think I got anything good on this chest. We'll find out in a second. I don't think I did. Oh, 10 Torstal. You know what? For an Iron Man, that's lovely. But there's a full run. You can see now you teleport back in. I think I have to go refill my charge back. But if I didn't do that, I'd be able to run straight back, just restock with the preset, refill the adrenaline crystal, and go back through, right? So really, with Water Retreat, there's almost no downtime, which is great. That's why I definitely 100% use the Water Retreat portal. Do not run through Port Sarim any more than you have to. Just do that once to get the first kill, and then never do it again. Use Water Retreat. It's so worth it. Lastly, why do we kill QBD? Well, for loot, obviously. The nice thing about QBD is that she has very consistent drops. You're not really hunting a specific rare drop to make your money, as just her common drops are very valuable. The average value of her drops is just under 200k per kill at the current Grand Exchange prices when I made this video. For Ironman, she drops the Royal Crossbow pieces, a powerful tier 80 200 crossbow, as well as a number of great PVM resources such as Sarabrews, Sharks, Rocktails, Super Restores, and Herbs. That just about wraps it up for this guide. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you found it useful. Let me know if you'd like to see more guides in the future, and make sure to check out my other content if you want to follow the progress of my Iron Man. If you have feedback or questions, add a comment to the video. I regularly review them and will answer any questions below as soon as I can.